Welcome to Money Talk Viewpoint. I am your host, Dennis Williams with CashMap Consulting, where we're all about enabling you to use your bank products to shift interest payments to principal payments, enabling you to keep money in your pocket and quickly grow wealth. Thanks for joining us. And today we have with us Charles Dents with Xelantt Profit Strategies. He is all about enabling mid-sized businesses who have moved successfully from that startup phase and are looking to move to the next level, but they've found that they've kind of plateaued in their revenues. So he's here to give us some tips on how to successfully make that transition. Charles, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dennis. I really appreciate being on the show and looking forward to our conversation. And just so that people know, clients ask me to transform their business to increase revenue. And increasing revenue shows up in several ways, whether they're looking for strategic investors or they're just looking to grow their business. And the way that I do that is through increasing knowledge. And then the two things that I'll also include that most do not, and that's the ability to implement and then have sustainable execution. Then the second thing is accelerating process, the strategic processes using AI tools, and as well as then establishing efficient operations, and then finally scaling their companies to surpass their current growth limitations.
So kind of restate that again, and maybe just like 3 bullet points, just so we can be focused on what you're telling.
Yeah. So growth happens in really 3 different ways. That is acceleration of strategies and implementing those strategies using AI tools. Number 2 would be to establish efficient operations. And number 3 is ultimately scaling to grow past limitations.
Okay, that's great. And so each of those is a mouthful to be able to effectively achieve.
Yeah,
and recognizing being a small business owner, I'm already maxed out. So before I'm going to spend a lot of time, I guess my first question would be, Charles, how did you get to this and what makes you an expert?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I started back in 2007, around 2007, 2008, and helping a couple of small startups. And in doing so, I realized that there was a certain skill set that I had that really I had not honed in on and fully recognized. So I began helping additional small startups as well as then moving to larger companies and helping them become successful. And as I started doing that, I started to formulate some strategies that really fit and work time after time. And so then I started helping some larger companies. And basically what that looks like is from a transformation standpoint, where they're trying to get into new markets, they were trying to have new product or service launches, or just simply get unstuck because, as you mentioned earlier, they just plateaued and had become stagnant and didn't know what was next, didn't know how to get to the next level. So because of that, then I really formulated this 5-stage business evolution and just recognizing that there are stages of growth. And number 1 would be startup phase. Number 2 would be the growth phase. Number 3 would be the maturity phase. Number 4, the expansion phase. And number 5, the dominance phase. So those 5 phases really are key. And with each phase, there's a transformation that has to take place by the business owner.
Okay, so when you end up moving into organizations and spending time with them, kind of what have you found is kind of the key pitfalls or mistakes that companies make that are kind of holding them back from being able to grow quickly?
Pitfalls. We all hate pitfalls, whether it's just in life or in business, right? Or in our relationships, et cetera, that they tend to happen. And we need to understand, what causes that. Well, from a business perspective as it relates to growth, there is this thing that I would call overexpansion. And overexpansion being meaning that businesses sometimes they grow too fast and they can't keep up. And so to me, that would be overexpansion and just avoiding that. And so in order to do that, you have to have specific strategies in place and you know where you're going step by step. But also when you overexpand too fast, you also tend to neglect your core customers. And that's always a bad thing, right? You never want to neglect your core customers. And then underestimating competition. So when you underestimate competition, you have not properly put your market research in place that will allow you to understand where your competitors are, and then keeping an eye on your competitors on a consistent basis so that you know when they're launching something new or they have innovated in some way. So it's always key to make sure that that focus is in place. So number one, to stay customer focused. Number two, to be data driven. And number three is also to have financial prudence or to maintain financial prudence. And if those three things are not done, then those pitfalls will show up.
So being a startup, I guess I'm kind of surprised on staying customer focused because
Yeah.
I would think as the startup, being customer focused is the natural. So how does the organization go off track as far as not maintaining customer focus?
Well, sometimes what happens is that companies will be so focused on their product, on their service, that they lose track of what the customer really wants. And it becomes all about what I believe they want as a business owner, as a startup owner. And therefore, I can now be focused so much on my company, so much on my product, so much on my service that I lose track of what the customer actually wants. And that I will say this also, just because they want it doesn't mean that they need it. But we do lose focus of both what they want and what they need, and how we then present that to them, because we have to transition them from a want to ensuring that their need is also met, even if they don't understand their need.
So then again, let's act as if I'm your new client.
Okay.
What are you going to have me do different? And maybe before you even say that, when you end up engaging with a company, what's the time frame that I would expect to see changes that it would give me a sense of hope that you're actually on the right track?
Yeah. So we very strategically on board our clients so that we immediately understand what the focus is, what our goals are, what our markers are in terms of success. And we always put a marker at 90 days out to begin to see some transformation. And that doesn't mean that's 100% done, but that means that we begin to see results within 90 days. And that's always our target. And that's what we guarantee, that you'll begin to see some transformation beginning as early as 90 days. And it sounds unrealistic, but when you focus on the right things, then that becomes a reality.
Okay, so walking in the door and you're sitting down with the owner of the company who started it.
Yeah.
What do you have them start doing different? Because they're already busy.
Yeah. Well, number one is that we need to put in place, and this is probably a term that most have probably heard, but we need to look at their scheduling freedom.